Welcome to Football League Extra. Charlton are 10 points clear in League One. No worries, you might think. You'd be wrong. They've had 2 bad home defeats in 4 days. They can't blow it, can they?
Not from 10 points clear, you wouldn't have thought. But I would say with Charlton, the last 3 or 4 years, I think I'm right in saying that they've hit walls each season and tailed off very, very badly. Usually they're doing that from a position of just around the playoffs in League One, or even once, I think, under Pardew around the playoffs in the Championship, and they fell away dramatically each time. Last season under Chris Powell, after a great start, 3 or 4 wins on the bounce initially, they went through a horrendous run. Now, there will be jitters just coming in, just a slight, slightly nervous after those 2 defeats to Colchester and Notts County. But you look at their running and they should be okay. They've got Huddersfield away and Carlisle away to come, which are the 2 tricky ones. The rest of them are all eminently winnable. And considering through the season their form has been remarkable, really, they should be okay this time around.
But when I saw them against Colchester, and they looked quite predictable, no pace in the side, useful little fullback, Solly. What does that say about the standard in League One?
Yeah, I think that's a concern. I think they have given themselves sort of enough breathing space. I can't believe they'd slip up from here. I think sort of Chris Powell has done such a good job there, and he's so kind of almost long in the tooth. You know, going back, it goes even further back, doesn't it? If you remember Alan Kirbishley, even in his era, there used to be horrendous finishers, and people used to question the training methods, see whether he'd overtrained them and then actually run out of steam towards the end of the season. And I think maybe it's just almost, you know, if people talk about it and it goes into your psyche, then it all sort of almost takes over your being. But I just feel that they have dominated this division so much, and they seem to me to be by far and away the best team. Yes, there's going to be a scrap towards the end of the season. You wonder whether sort of the change will do sort of kind of Huddersfield any good, but they keep on sort of drawing. And I just think the teams below them will trip themselves up as well to give Charlton enough stamina to go and reach the finish line.
What about Notts County, David? They were 4-0 up at Charlton, won 4-2. Keith Curle, 5 wins and a draw in his first 6 games. They could well get the playoff place, couldn't they?
They could, and if you look at it, Keith Curle went in there and people were wondering why were they making the managerial changes, etc., and it seemed a bit left field that suddenly they were on the move, and he's done a great job since he's gone in. The intriguing thing, if you look at that division, is that the biggest payers, the top 4 or 5 paying clubs, are all in the top 6 at the moment, so you can see that those paying wages, and rightly so, because I was told of one of them where their star centre forward is being paid £17,000 a week to play in League One, which is, you know, to us old 3rd division, and it seems an astonishing amount of money. And that club would not be in the top 2 at the moment and could be in the playoffs and stay down. So you think they are gambling with big wages. So Notts, who are run on a very different footing, making it, doing the late running there, could be a bit like we've seen Blackpool and others in recent years, where they've come in and then had the real pitch and had the impetus to win through the playoffs.
And what about Sheffield Wednesday? Dave Jones has gone in there, 2 very good results to start with. Is his experience likely to be important?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a successful manager wherever he's been. OK, he didn't manage to get Cardiff up into the Premier League, but he came as close as anyone's going to. He's great start on Saturday. I think there were 3 up after about 10 minutes. To keep that momentum going, and they're sort of, they've got game in hand. They'll be up there. I think they're only a point off Sheffield United, aren't they? So that they'll be confident they can get into that top 2. Whether they can catch Charlton, I'm not sure. But he's, maybe we'll look back at it as a masterstroke from Mandaric. Maybe, if just that little injection of momentum at the right time might be key. I would say, just on the League One issue, maybe there isn't a team this year that scintillated in the same way that Brighton did last year, maybe even Southampton last year. Maybe it's more of a grind this season. I mean, Charlton have been incredibly impressive with the results they've achieved, but maybe they're not dazzling. Maybe they're not going to have the same success in the Championship. Maybe they're not going to go straight through like Southampton and potentially Brighton are threatening to do this year.
What about the Championship, John? West Ham, I think they've dropped 21 points at home. They're really making a bad fist of it, aren't they?
Astonishing at Upton Park. I mean, you can trace all the root of all evil, and yet again, it's the kind of that pressure that they seem to put themselves under at Upton Park. Yes, they are expected to go up. It's supposed to be a formality for Sam Allardyce.
There's a bit of a sense of entitlement there, isn't there?
Yeah, and I really object to it. I really do. I'll tell you, you get some. I mean, particularly in our business, you know, you get a few sports tests, you know, sort of, you know, run by West Ham fans. They think they're entitled to promotion to the Premier League. West Ham seem to get on the back pages when they briefly return to the top of the table in the Championship. And frankly, I just think that kind of arrogant attitude is the reason why some people want them to fail. I'd like to see them go up, because I think they'd be a good addition to the Premier League. I think they'd kind of sustain themselves there, and it would be good to see them back up. I think Allardyce would make a decent fist of it. But it's almost the biggest battle, the bigger battle in the long term will be getting out of that division, and that's a big ask at the moment when you see some weaker characters crumbling under the Upton Park pressure.
And as a final point, David, Reading, 8 on the bounce. Are they likely to be able to take advantage of that sort of moral vacuum, if you like, that's going on at West Ham?
Well, I think there's 2 key points to this. One, the fact that the Daily Mirror sports desk is run by a West Ham fan means Crossy's just ruled out a pay rise for this year. And I think, no, the Reading thing, they are a club that when they get going, we've seen this before with them, that Brian McDermott seems to get them under this sort of rich seam of form, and they take off. And they must be a threat to the people around them, and you can see them pinching the top 2. I think West Ham will end up champions.
Reading are a credit to themselves. They'll be a credit to the Premier League if they get there. Thanks for joining us on livesapitch.co.uk.